3-5.5. This is on tips, tax, and commission. So the first question is about a tip. So tip is like money that you pay a waiter or waitress for their service, for bringing you your food and refilling your drinks and stuff like that. So on number 1, it says that our bill is $24.50, and then we're going to give it 16% tip. What is the final bill? When you're giving a tip, that's basically like a markup. So basically here, all we're going to do is figure out, what is 16% of $24.50, and then whatever that is, we'll just add it on to the $24.50. Okay, so really nothing different than what we were doing previously, just making sure you guys understand that that's what we do when we do figuring tips. So if you work that out, that is $3.92. That means our tip is going to be $3.92. Obviously, that's not the final bill. That's not how much we're going to pay, because the other stuff was $24.50. So we would have to then add the $3.92 onto that. And then if you add, that would be $28.42. It is possible to do this a couple other different ways. One thing we talked about with markups the other day, you could look at this as, I'm paying, full price would be 100%. I'm paying another 16% on top of that. So I'm paying 116%. So you could say, I'm going to figure out what is 116% of $24.50, and that would actually give you your total costs. Okay, if you multiply that out, and you will get $28.42. And then just to mention, I've kind of gone away from these a little bit with you guys, but a third option would be a proportion. You could say 16 over 100 equals T over 24.50. Okay, proportion 16%. That's our tip amount. And then you could find a pattern, or you could multiply by 24.50 here. Then the tip would be the $3.92. And then just like we did over the first way, then you'd add the $3.92 onto the $24.50, which would give you $28.42. So number 2, your final bill is $51.28. This includes a 12% tip. What was the bill without the tip? Okay, so this one is a little bit different. We've got, we could draw out a bar diagram here if you want to. So this whole thing is $51.28. And that's including, that's our costs, like our original costs, which we could say that's like 100%, plus our tip, which is like 12%. So you can see kind of what's happening there is, the regular cost plus the tip, that's 112%. Okay. So what we could say then out of that is that 112% of the bill is $51.28. 112% of our original bill is $51.28. From that, we can come up with an equation. It's like our percent equation we talked about. So 112%, we can change that to a decimal. Of usually means multiply. The bill, that's what we're trying to find. Is means equals. So that would be our equation, and then from there we can solve the equation for B. So to solve that, they're multiplying, so we would divide by 1 1200ths. When we're doing that, we're actually dividing by a number bigger than 1, so our answer should be getting smaller, which is good, because we're saying 5128 was with the tip. We're trying to figure out without the tip. This doesn't quite come out evenly, so technically we should do some little squiggly lines, which means we're rounding. And to the nearest cent, that would be $45.79. It's like 45.7857 and some stuff. So 45.79 was without the tip, and then with the tip was 51.28. An additional question they could have asked would be, how much was the tip that you gave? And that would just be subtracting, 51.28 minus 45.79 to figure that out. And that problem, you can't just figure out 12% of the 51.28. It's not 12% of that amount, it was 12% of the amount before the tip got added on. If we look at number 5, number 5 is talking about tax. Tax is also just a percent markup, and you guys have worked some problems with tax before. So it was $45.50, and then the tax is 7.5%. What's the final cost? So, we just need to figure out what's 7.5% of $45.50. Make sure you move your decimal 2 places when you change that to a decimal. Okay, and then if you work that out, that doesn't come out real great, but just round it to the nearest cent. So we'll just say $3.41 would be the tax, and then we'll add that on to the $45.50. And that would be $48.91. Number 7, final cost including tax of buying a pair of jeans is $37.82. And the tax was 6.5%. What was the pre-tax cost of the jeans? So similar to what we looked at earlier, we got 100%, that's the pre-tax cost, and then plus the 6.5% tax. So we're looking at 106.5%. In other words, 106.5% of the pre-tax cost is the $37.82. So what we can do is change the percent to a decimal. So 1.065 times whatever our pre-tax cost is equals $37.82. And then we're trying to find that pre-tax cost. They're multiplying, so we can divide by 1.065. And if you work that out, again, that doesn't come out exactly evenly, but that would be about $35.51. Okay. If you guys are doing a problem like this, if it doesn't say you have to write an equation, you can kind of use logical reasoning a little bit to figure out what you need to do. In other words, I know the final cost was $37.82. Before the tax, it's going to be less than that. So you can think about, well, how do I get a number that's smaller than that? Figuring out it's 106.5% is kind of a key idea. But once we figure that out, think about, well, I could take 37.82 times 1.065. That would give me a bigger number. Oh, I want a smaller number. Okay, let's divide by 1.065. Okay, so in other words, if it didn't say write an equation, you could get the 106.5% and then just divide this out, and that would give you your answer. Okay, so even if you're a little sketchy if you're doing it correctly or not, just think about, do I want a bigger number or a smaller number? And that will help direct you to the right way of doing the problem. Look at number 11 is commission. So you get an 11% commission on the sales you make, and your commission is $512.50. What were your total sales? There's different ways you could do this. So one thing we could do, we could say 11% of the total sales is $512.50. So 11% times whatever the total sales is equals $512.50. They're multiplying, so we can divide, and that comes out to about $4,659.09. A different way you could do that problem would be to do a proportion. You could say 11%, which is 11 over 100, equals 512.50 over t, or whatever variable you want. And then you could find a pattern or work that out, and you would get the same answer that way also. Number 13, you go to a restaurant and order a lot of food. Must be a group here. $137.61, and you're tipping the waiter 18%, and you're also paying a tax of 6.5% on the original bill. What is the final cost of the meal? So a lot of times with tips, a tip you might give on the price before tax. So first of all, for the tip, if we figure out 18% of $137.61, that's about $24.77. That's like 24.7698. So we'll just round that to the nearest cent. And then the tax is 6.5%, so move your decimal 2 spots. It's like 65 thousandths times the 137.61 is $8.94. And that would be the tax. Okay, again, the tax here. Tax doesn't go on the tip at all. The tip's just kind of its own separate cost. And then we can add these together. And that ends up being $171.32. Okay, so that one's kind of a combination of tip and tax. So this gives you an idea of how to work with tips, taxes, and commissions.